So
can
anyway.
you talk about kind of actually, I mean, this is sort of just personal curiosity as much as anything else. I mean, Reza Abdo died before I arrived in New York and before I was conscious of his work.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that kind of what that meant for you and what for you that meant, that period? Theatrically?
It was quite an eye-opener to me because I think before that I was really an art school brat, and I do not mean this in a bad sense. I was simply thinking more along the lines of people like Jack Smith, or I was influenced more by people like that who would say, take this piece of fabric that exists in the corner, put it on someone, do your show, very anti-theater, make it a huge spectacle with, you know, $1,000, and just throw it at the audience and see what they do. To be able to think about theater on a more serious level was something that I gleaned from my time
level,
with him.
or, I mean,
not just conceptually, but conceptually as well. I think thinking outside the realm of sloppiness, purposeful sloppiness.
Because theatre was, in terms of the idea of a lot of the performance being sort of purposeful sloppiness.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was my sensibility. That is what I had taken from what I had learned and had been using. And so to see someone who was so organized, so focused, so driven, and so difficult, and he took his difficult nature and he said, this is what I want and this is what I'll get. And he never stopped short of getting what he wanted. That changed the way I began to think about things. Because I thought, well, I had wanted that box on stage before, but someone said, you can't have that $25 to go buy the box. I'd say, okay, no box. When working with him, you realize, no, if you want the box, you get the box. Not only artistically, but logistically. So it forced me to think in completely different terms.
And what about the artistic quality of the work? What sort of influence did it have?
Well, you know, his artistic quality was quite high, as anyone can attest to who saw the performances. But what impressed me most was what I just said, that he would get what he wanted, and he wouldn't stop short of getting the vision that he wanted. And often I have people who come who are expecting some sort of big, angry spectacle from me simply because I worked with him. But what he taught me is to stay true to your own personal sensibility and make it happen the way you want it to happen.
Right.
But it also allowed me to think in different terms about what you expect from actors. And I think actors often come in and they say, I'll give you this much and that's it. With him, you had to give everything. So if he said, take off your clothes and take this eel and put it on your body and it'll be a gorgeous tableau, you did it. And you knew it would be.
And so the Archery Contest.
Yes.
Which has had pretty extensive life already as a radio play.
Yes.
At PS and
Yes.
PS1 Art Radio International.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about that?
Sure. Archery Contest began because I wanted to get back to my text again, and I didn't want to treat the text as I had treated it before, meaning grooming it only for the visual. Of course, when we get to the present, this all changes. So initially, I just wanted to focus on a rather abstract text, think about the sound quality, think about the voices, and not feel that I had to
No, it's just that was in the process of developing it for a radio play.
Yeah.
And how is that? I mean, you're such a visual director.
It was really strange because I thought, well, if I do this play, I'll have to have this big, massive set with grass and picket fences and tombstones, and it started getting overwhelming because it was the $1 million musical without music, and it forced me.
A particularly cheery topic. No sad lion.
Nice sad line?
No sad lion.
Oh, okay. So it forced me to think about how to present the images within the text in a different way without relying on a particular image initially, which made me focus on sound. So how do you present what they're talking about? How do you suggest the atmosphere of, you know, the tomb, or how do you suggest the atmosphere of a party where they're eating incredibly strange desserts? And Kristen Worrell, who had worked with me on Parsifal, was excited by the concept of just developing words and sound without having to think about the picture, et cetera, et cetera. And so we actually designed the sound before we even dealt with any actors. What's it about? Oh, a reverend, his third wife in the script, living in a very empty landscape, someplace that used to be his home. Once upon a time, he's come back and found that he can no longer inhabit the church he grew up in, that the church is inhabited by the sexton of a cemetery with 2 young teenagers that he's taking care of. There seems to be no one else in the landscape, and the Reverend has no flock. He has no congregation, and out of boredom or the need to destroy the rules of the church that have created his existence, he chases after these teenagers sexually in an attempt to...
Both of them?
Yeah. He goes after the girl much more so than the boy. He wants the girl as a second wife. His wife agrees. He pushes the wife to go after the boy, but he is obsessed with the boy who has a reputation as a bit of the holy fool. It's again like the Parsifal. So he's obsessed with the boy for that reason. He believes he has visions. And so they believe once they conquer these 2, that perhaps some secret will be shared. But of course, the children end up being much more clever than they had expected.
What does the sexton do?
What does the sexton do? That's the big question. That's the big mystery. That's the big mystery. The sexton is the polar opposite of the reverend. The sexton is basically the pagan entity, but also someone who is so vehemently against the church that he has also isolated himself to the point of self-destruction. It is not that the sexton represents the white and the reverend represents the black. They're just 2 people, polar opposites, left and right, who cannot come to any sort of mutual agreement because they both detest what's in the middle.
Got it. Tell me about the way you think about space and the way you think about your performers and I guess not the sort of blow-by-blow process, but the kind of impact you're looking to have on an audience as you present these shows.
I am very bored with proscenium theater, and as many people are. And I think that...
As opposed to
just utilization of any old space, let's say, to be turned into theater. But because we have so few spaces where we actually are able to present work, valuable spaces such as yours, I think that performers often feel the need to have to fit their show into a specific type of place without rethinking the space. And in order for us to engage a new audience, I think that we have to offer them something slightly different about how they perceive the spaces that we present this work in. And so I have no interest in going in and presenting the archery contest in a proscenium setting. I'd rather have the audience be able to look at it from multiple perspectives, not only... Yeah, go on.
I mean, I'm just questioning you, there's proscenium settings, proscenium stages, and then there's institutions that I think embody the kind of values that you hate about proscenium settings. Is the stage itself...
I shouldn't say that. It's not that I hate
doesn't matter, hate or whatever you want to say, but I mean, do you find anything interesting in the old style? In Europe they call them Italian stages, you know, in these proscenium stages. For me, I think that I'm kind of almost more interested in them now than black boxes.
Sure, if they're doing Baroque and Commedia, I don't know. I mean, black boxes are boring as well. I think a black box can be just as boring as a proscenium. You need to quote the proscenium to me if you're going to use it, which is why something like the Baroque or Commedia may be more intriguing, depending on what the theater looks like. We don't have many of those theaters in New York. But no, I do not detest the institution that these things are being handed down to us from.
You do not detest the stage
Sorry, that wasn't
itself.
yeah.
You do detest the institution.
I don't detest the institution.
But you care to name them.
No. No, we need the institutions, sadly.